Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the final session of the 2021 Ontario Estates Forum, titled Innovation and its Impact on the Estates Ecosystem. My name is Aaron Klug. I am the chair for today's panel, and I'll give you a little bit of background on me before we meet the rest of the panelists. I'm a former tax and estate planning lawyer, practiced for a number of years in downtown Toronto. But I wound down my practice about 2.5 years ago after doing some investigation into the problem of why so many Canadians don't have a will. And we're going to touch on that topic a little bit today. But after looking into the problem, I teamed up with another estate planning lawyer, and we decided that we could create a tech solution to help address this problem. And so we co-founded Epilogue Wills, and that's what I do now on a full-time basis. So let's, without further ado, meet the rest of our panelists. Jordy, if you'd like to start off and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Aaron. Pleasure to be here. I'm Jordy Ayton, and I'm an estates lawyer. Been that for 30 years, and in addition to that full-time job, I'm also the founder and CEO of eState Planner, which is a online portal for advisors, for lawyers to use with their clients and help them plan wills and generate wills. So that's what I do.
Excellent. Thanks, Jordy. Emma?
Thanks again. It's great to be here. My name is Emma Michael, and I am a partner at Ion Law Partners. We're a small, medium-sized firm. We are mainly practicing in the areas of estate planning, real estate, and business law, and I focus mainly on estate planning and some real estate as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Emma. Max, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Aaron, and thanks for having me. Yeah, like everyone here, I'm a wills and estates lawyer. I'm an accredited specialist in wills and estates, and as you might be able to tell from my twang, I'm from Australia. And look, I started in the wills and estates area, thought I would be a wills and estates lawyer for life. And after a few years in Singapore at a trust company, I thought that I would make the move into technology. And now I work for a company called Settify. I'm the Chief Product Officer there. Settify is a market leader in the client intake space in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Canada, and the USA. It's sold to law firms and professionals. It's effectively an off-the-shelf plug-in and play intake system that's used by end user clients, built by lawyers though, and it's customizable. So it's a system that allows lawyers and professionals to onboard clients without the lawyer having to do anything. It's now used by 500 law firms around the world, and actually generated close to 90,000 clients for those lucky law firms as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. And we'll round out our panel full of lawyers with Amanda.
Thanks, Aaron. My name is Amanda Bafero, and I am the Chief Risk Officer and General Counsel at Bridgepoint Financial. Bridgepoint has been around for about 15 years in the litigation lending space, and we have recently entered into the estates area to provide various funding options across estate administration and will preparation. So it's been an exciting adventure, and we're looking forward to participating today.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. I think we're going to have a great discussion. And I wanted to start with sort of the general theme of innovation, right? We're all doing things in our practices and in our businesses that are innovative. And I think it's important first to understand why we're doing those things. What are the drivers behind innovation these days in the estate space particularly? And maybe I'll open up the floor to Max to start. But of course, if anybody wants to jump in and add, details about what they do and how it affects their practice, that would be great as well.
Yeah, sure. Happy to kick things off. Look, I think the big drivers in this space are really from the clients. I think the end user clients are demanding a little bit of a different experience with professionals and lawyers, and an experience to either get their estate planning done or participate in the estate administration space. I think clients need access to lawyers, and they need it at the times that suit them and in the way that suits them as well. So I think we'll see a natural driver from the client side to lawyers and professionals who can adapt to that for them.
maybe I'll just jump in on it. I think we're fortunate in our area that our area of law hasn't changed in a few hundred years, and so we're ripe for a revolution. And if you think about how you plan wills with your clients, you probably sit across the table from them and talk and write private notes. And they're not looking at anything and you're just looking at them, and that's about it. And that's exactly the way it worked 200 years ago. And so what we need to do, because that's not a great process, it's a terrible process, but it's one we've been stuck with for 200 years. It's time for change. That's what's driving so many of us, the way we collect information. Max talks about that. I mean, Emma, you're going to talk about that too. And the way we fund things, like Amanda's going to talk about. I mean, there's a lot of room for innovation in our area. If something hasn't changed for 200 years, you can bet on it.
Yeah, I think I can totally jump on that front and say that it's not only that, it's a variety of things, right? We're moving into an era where a lot of our assets are becoming digital, right? And so, holding our documents and holding our assets is just moving into the tech space, right? Into the digital playing field. And I think that's one of the drivers, COVID, and, what people are expecting in terms of how they're going to dialogue and interact with their professionals has also changed. A lot of people just, are demanding to have online digital experiences. A lot of people might not even want to go into an office anymore. And so I think that these factors are all contributing, and then they only lead into further the parallel development of all of these wonderful softwares and things, the tools that we have that we can use that really help us not only interact with our clients, also develop the documents, the plans that we need, illustrate them in a way that makes sense, and then store them in a way that is digitally friendly, tech friendly. And so I think that's just a convergence of many different things that are pushing us into the technological space.
I would just touch on what Max said a little bit ago about clients are driving innovation. And I think, an hour ago, Bridgepoint received an application for funding from someone who said, I am the executrix and beneficiary of my grandmother's estate. I just accepted an offer on her house. I am in need of money as this has exhausted my savings and credit cards. So when we talk about who's driving change in this space, it's the clients, it's the borrowers, it's the people who are either the trustees or executors of relatives' estates. It's beneficiaries who are struggling through COVID and probate's taking too long and they want to put an offer in on a house because the housing market's hot and they don't want to wait. And we certainly see day in and day out the different ways in which the clients are asking for change. Maybe in the past, and as a lawyer myself, I know this happened to me, clients would ask their lawyers for money. And sometimes lawyers feel compelled to help out, and they probably shouldn't. And so Bridgepoint certainly is responding to what appears to be a really obvious need in the market to innovate in this space and to find funding opportunities for people so that they can deal with the needs in real time and maybe take a little bit of pressure off the estates lawyer who is trying to administer the estate as quickly as they can while people just sort of, deal with their expenses.
And I mean, the what you guys are doing is so interesting because, we sort of think about innovation as being necessarily digital and technological advancements. But what you're speaking about, Amanda, is an innovative product, an innovative financial product related to the estate administration process. So when we're thinking about innovation and how we're going to incorporate that into our practices going forward, this isn't just about necessarily, digitization and putting things online collaboration or client intake or will generation. That's part of it. But I think that, innovation is much broader than that. And what you're doing really speaks to that.
I think on the topic of funding and money, I think also a big driver is the lawyers and the professionals, wanting to save time and money with their clients. I think, this is an area of law where there are certain parts of it that can be, I guess, commoditized or streamlined that can make the process far more efficient for those professionals. And I think, the lawyers themselves will and the professionals will drive that. To find ways to make this not only a better process for the client and the client experiences we've spoken about, but also about for the lawyers as well, to make those practices more efficient.
I mean, it's also a matter of access, right? I mean, online, the access to people is so much broader, and everybody's, online these days. You have, even they can imagine in remote areas where maybe, access to lawyers. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while in the legal community about the need for lawyers in remote communities. And so now you move things into the digital platform, onto digital platforms and whatnot, and you kind of have a lot more access to people. Maybe it might be difficult when it comes to signing documents that's still required to be in person, but at least access to information, and document records and recording, I should say. It's definitely kind of pushed the envelope on that front.
One other point is that, lawyers, just look at the world as far as how data is used nowadays. I mean, you go back 10 years ago, nobody knew what you were doing on your phone, and you didn't have a phone that did anything. But now we have so much data that we collect and then try to use in an inefficient way. That's another thing that it's just natural that we're going to start doing like what other people are doing with data, which is using it for our benefit, for our clients' benefit, and for making things efficient. So we don't use encyclopedias anymore, right, to find information. It's the same kind of thing with technology. It can gather all that information. You don't have to go to a book.
Yeah, and we've seen it, so much in other areas of law. I mean, when I went to law school, it was sort of already past the point of having to go to the law library to look up cases. Everything was online. But yeah, well, but it wasn't always that way. But like you said, Jordy, estate planning today is the same as people were doing it by and large 10, 20, or 100 years ago, and it's time for a change. Somebody once told me that, somebody is going to engage in your service, speaking about Epilogue, our online platform, and measure that experience against their experiences in other domains. They don't have to be related to law anywhere. And we're living in a world now where I can pull out my phone and I can, with a few clicks, decide to order a bottle of ketchup, and I can choose what size the bottle is going to be, what brand the ketchup is going to be, what type of bottle it's going to come in, and what store it's going to come from. And that bottle of ketchup is going to show up at my house in 3 hours from now. And this is the level of expectation that clients are going to have, not necessarily that they want their will prepared in 3 hours, but people are going to look at the services that legal professionals provide and say, well, why can't you do this? Because I know that that's possible. I do this in another area of my life where I purchase goods and services. And we have to come up with better answers than, well, we've just always done it that way. So I'm going to give you a paper form to fill out. It's 20 pages long, and you go fill that out and then scan it back to me.
And lawyers are our worst enemies in many cases. I mean, people who are, yes, we know how to use our current system, and it's been around. We were taught how to do it in law school. This is how our mentors did it. This is how we've done it. And to change is difficult. Change is difficult. But you show me a profession. I always draw the analogy to the spreadsheet. Imagine accountants who said, you know what, I always did it manually, and when I wanted to change a number, I crossed it out and I wrote in it, and it worked great for me. I mean, yeah, it did work great, except we can do it in zero time now. So we have to evolve as lawyers. We have to invest in evolution as a practice. And we're our own worst enemies by just saying, we don't have the time to learn. It takes too long. I like my old process of cutting and pasting. Yeah, I make mistakes, but I know where everything is. Well, there are other ways to do it in a much better way.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Jordy. Lawyers are busy. They don't really have time to innovate. There are great ideas flowing around in professional circles and with lawyers as well. And sometimes you do need to outsource particular parts of your business. And if you can, you can become a really powerful machine in providing that legal service. I think, it's lawyers are stubborn, and they do like the ways they do things. But as soon as you I guess admit the fact that technology is going to play a role in the experience in the future, I think that the power is unleashed in terms of that legal practice.
So just, I mean, speaking about unleashing the power in a legal practice, I mean, I think that's a good segue into the next piece that I'd like to talk about. You know, off the top, I sort of mentioned this statistic that's floating out there. 50+% of adults in Canada do not have a will. I think another 15% have a will, but it's out of date. This presents a huge opportunity for estate planning lawyers, right? There's clients out there, potential clients that need wills done. And there's a body of lawyers in Ontario and all over Canada that are ready to service those clients. So how do we do it? There's a gap, right? And how do we narrow that gap? How do we get the clients that need the service to the lawyers that are willing and able and want to provide the service?
Well, I think I can speak to that and say that education is a huge factor. You know, our practice, we have different areas, right? And so we have the opportunity to see clients that come in for their real estate transactions, as well as, you know, their business dealings and corporate affairs. And so those are the opportunities really to talk about, you know, you have assets and these assets should really be protected, and to educate them on why and what happens. And you really get to know people's, you know, family structures and, you know, their different circumstances. Some people come from different countries or whatnot. And so it's really about engaging people. And so that's on one front. You know, when you work in a practice that has different areas, you have the opportunity to do that. But lawyers also need to, you know, we're very reactive. And like you guys said before, we're really busy all the time. And it's unfortunate because what we really should be doing is educating people on, you know, how do we be proactive about our legal affairs? What actually happens? People have no idea. And, you know, from so many different conversations with people I've had, clients that, you know, even though they might be super sophisticated in the areas that they work in, they have no idea what happens. You know, they're separated, not divorced. They have, you know, blended families, stepchildren, half children, people they treat as children. There's disabilities involved, all types of different things. And so one aspect of you know, why people aren't getting their estate planning done is education. And then it's not only education for the end user, but also education for other professionals, right? And, you know, we interplay with so many different professionals, whether it be from insurance, you know, insurance brokers and agents to financial planners to accountants and whatnot. And they really have that opportunity to look at the client's financial affairs, and estate planning is in large part financial. So how can we educate not just the end clients, but also other professionals in understanding what our rules is and how we can interplay with each other, and, you know, just educating them on the need for estate planning for the community.
When we think about all those people out there who don't have wills, you know, you'll often hear that the cost is a factor. You know, I can't afford it, or I don't want to pay for it, or I'll do that next year. And one of the really big changes that I believe is coming to the legal services market is that whole concept of buy now, pay later. You go on pretty much any online shopping site, and this goes to Erin's point earlier, people have an expectation that what's happening outside of their legal services experience should be happening inside their legal services experience. So if I can go on any online store and buy something and make payments in 4 easy installments, why can't I also do that with legal services? So, you know, if clients can't afford something and they would like to proceed, then that's an option. And I think a lot of firms are offering similar arrangements, whether voluntarily or not, where they're deferring payments in order to, you know, to provide services. But again, you know, there are other options out there, other funding options out there that could be available to help people pay for these services in a way that reflects the current sort of financial marketplace.
I was going to jump in there, Amanda, and say that I think lawyers invented buy now, pay later. I thought lawyers do the work, render the bill at the end of the month, then they send the bill to the client, and the client pays it 30 days later. Before you know it, that's 2 months between work and payment. I think buy now, pay later is a massive player in the legal market in the future. I'd totally agree. And I think, you know, if we can go out and educate clients in that way, and make it easier for them to access legal services by that carrot, I guess, that offering, then I think that's a win. And Emma, on your point, I think that part of the reason why people don't get a will done is just they don't want to. They think about doing it. They think that, well, that means that something's going to happen if I get prepared and learn about it. Or maybe they're just putting the blinkers on and thinking, well, I won't focus on that. I've got other pressing things to worry about it now as well. So I think it is a massive education piece for people to understand that, and sometimes it takes a story in the media for this to happen. I know in Australia, there was a big just family dispute around one of the mining magnates here whose father passed away, and there was a big dispute, and that it was a big surge in people getting their estate planning in order because they could see in the media how it all went wrong if it wasn't in place.
I just wanted to make a couple of anecdotal points about people getting their wills. I think a lot of us in this area saw a huge increase in volume of clients during COVID. People always say, oh, well, people are scared of dying. There's that, right? There's the idea that as people age and get closer to the possibility of dying, the chance that they're going to have a will is higher, right? And we're seeing that in the demographics. We're going to be busy. If we think we're busy now, we're going to be a lot busier in the next 10 years, because as people age, they do wills, they redo wills. And so that's the fact. But the other thing is that the convenience of being able to do things via Zoom I used to drag my clients down. I don't know how I did it. I worked downtown Toronto. My clients came down for 3 meetings. I would have fired myself. Now we do the 2 meetings on Zoom, and that's made a huge difference. And that's just an example of how we can provide legal services in a much more efficient and friendly and easy, convenient way.
Yeah, I think you hit all the buzzwords there: easy, friendly, convenient. When I think about making a will as an activity and why people don't do it, I've always said it is if you're going to design a task that somebody's going to procrastinate, it's making a will. Why? Because nobody understands it, right? To your point, Emma, there's no education about it. Amanda, to your point, they know it's going to be expensive. They're not exactly sure what happens in the black box, but they know whatever comes out, there's going to be a big bill attached to it. Lawyers aren't always the most friendly and approachable people to deal with. They also maybe use terms that the person doesn't understand. And so somebody, like you've spoken about, Max, like they might be afraid to even engage with the lawyer. They might not know a lawyer or how to connect with a lawyer. And so there are all these, and I guess the major one is for a lot of people, it's not urgent, right? They don't feel as though they need a will tomorrow. So it's the type of thing you can put off till next week or next year. And so it's really a perfect storm for not getting a will done. But I think what, estate planning lawyers need to do is look at those reasons. Why are people not engaging in this process, even though it's something that they need and probably instinctively feel that they need? Like I say, when somebody tells me they don't have a will, it feels like a confession. There's always some kind of like, I don't have a will, but I probably should, or I don't have a will, but I've been meaning to do it for a long time. There's a sense of guilt about not having a will. So there's a gap there. And I think, lawyers need to think about the reasons why that gap exists, and then using some of the tools that we've talked about and that we're going to talk about today, find ways to close that gap, but get the clients that needed a service to the professionals who can provide that service.
I just thought of a great marketing line, and if you're reading this, it's not too late. I always joke when clients say, "Oh my God, I haven't got around to my will." I said, "Well, obviously it's not too late, because you're here." But what we're selling is peace of mind often, right? We're selling the ability that it's another thing on their list that's off their list. So we have to make sure that that's something we're providing the client as well.
Yeah, well, I always say, it's better to have one and not need one than to need one and not have one. And for all the bad stigma that lawyers get all the time, I always emphasize the fact that, you don't have one. Lawyers make a hell of a lot more money when we have to undo and figure out all the stuff that you could have figured out when you had the opportunity to. So, I think there has to be an emphasis on that.
When you talk about
people, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, when Jordy was talking about that whole concept of peace of mind, so that, you want that peace of mind at the beginning of the process, but then there's also that component of peace of mind at the end of the process too, where the trustees involved, I'm sure that's a very stressful time in someone's life, especially if they've lost a loved one. And then there's all the responsibilities that go along with that, and all the financial responsibilities and the strain on your personal resources at a time where, you're under a lot of stress. So again, having innovative financial solutions available to trustees and to beneficiaries can go a long way to sort of helping with that whole concept of peace of mind during that difficult time as well. Sorry, Max, you were going to say?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think I was just wanting to mention that I think that people do talk about getting their wills done amongst friends and family. You know, the conversation, whether it's around the Christmas table, about, you know, yes, I should get something done, or the barbecue on the weekend, but maybe bridging that gap to get access to the service is the issue. Maybe, you know, people do find it really daunting and scary to calling the lawyer and starting that conversation. So yeah, maybe really resonating with the client and understanding sort of the need to bridge that gap with the lawyer and with the service provider to make sure that not only is it an affordable way to do it, you know, is it, you know, something that they can do then and there, but it's practical and it's not time consuming. You know, the 3 trips into town, Geordie, that I think is, you know, that's still the way things are done. And I think that there are certainly ways that you know, we as providers and solution providers can make that easier.
Yeah, I want to relay an anecdote just from our experience at Epilogue. So, you know, I left practice and you know, decided to build a tech solution to address one of the points that Max made earlier, which is that a lot of what we're doing could be templated and streamlined and sort of brought to sort of the mass market. And recently we did a survey, not of our customers, not of people that purchased our product, but of people that didn't purchase our product, people that started the process and dropped off for whatever reason. Just as an aside, this is something that lawyers don't do enough of: solicit feedback from clients and understand where they did good things, where they did not such good things in an effort to improve their practice. But that being said, we're a technology company. This is what we do. We try to solicit feedback. We try to iterate on our product all the time. And so our non-customers, people that didn't finish the process, we asked them, why? What stopped you? A lot of people said, nothing, I just haven't gotten around to it, I will. But the number 2 answer that people gave was, I couldn't afford it. And so here, you know, years ago, I was a lawyer charging thousands of dollars for an estate planning service. If I've now distilled it into a very basic estate planning service that we're doing for under $200. And customers are still saying, I can't afford this service. And until I got that feedback, I really had no idea about the depths of this affordability problem. And it really is an access to justice problem that, you know, people need a service. And it's going to be difficult to bridge that gap because, you know, lawyers have experience and they spend time and they take care of their clients in a very particular way. And they want to be compensated for their time and for providing that service. Where I think this whole conversation is going is around, what are the tools that will allow you to be more efficient in your practice? And that's kind of where I want to take the next theme in this conversation, which is, you know, I'd like to sort of go around the panel and have each of you talk about the pain points that you've seen lawyers experience either in your own practice or in a business where you're selling to lawyers, and you know, tease out some of those things and talk about a little bit about, you know, what you do either in your practice or, you know, in selling into legal practices to help alleviate some of those pain points.
Okay, I'll start. I think some of the pain points that we encounter on a regular basis. Yes, payment is one of the things that people are always a little bit shy about, and you know, providing different options, payment plans. We've implemented that in our practice. It's been very helpful to kind of break up, you know, your payments or whatnot, and also, you know, it also still goes back to education, because I know a lot of people say I can't afford it, but you'd be surprised how many people can afford an iPhone, right? Or a new laptop or whatnot. So, you know, I think it's also about providing different payment options, but also emphasizing, you know, the importance of having an estate plan. And then also the process sometimes can feel a little daunting, right? Because so much of this, it's not just about, you know, who do I give what to? It's really also about understanding your assets. It's about, you know, financial planning, tax planning to a certain degree as well. And so getting all of that information sometimes is challenging, and people don't want to always put everything into a system online. You know, we're in the middle of kind of, you know, a spectrum of different people. There are some people that are very tech oriented, you know, the younger generations and whatnot. Everybody just wants to be online, work online and whatnot. Then you have the older generations that don't want anything online. They don't want to do it. They just get confused. And then you have the interplay of the younger generations that'll be, helping the older generations. And so we kind of want to have the access to the digital world available to them when they actually need it. And so in our practice, what we've done is, we use a variety of tools, and we've dedicated somebody in the firm, right? So we have, instead of a clerk, it's really a client ambassador that really helps the client. Well, just here's a little checklist of things to do, and to make it really easy, following up. How can we help you? Why don't you just send me everything? We'll upload it for you. And once we get everything, then it's, as we all know, once you have all the information, you can sit down. It makes your job a heck of a lot easier, right? So having different options, you can be online. We can have, an online meeting. You can have an in-person meeting. Different options for different people is really important. Because while some people can make decisions through an online platform, and that's amazing, there are also a hell of a lot of people that need a little bit of that dialogue with somebody. And so many people ask, well, what do other people do? What do you think? And, so much of this is kind of, the financial result of your estate, but also the emotional result. So we have to have a variety of different tools that will, appease the spectrum of different people that we're servicing.
Yeah, totally agree with both those points, Emma. I think, getting paid and getting information is two of the big pain points for lawyers. I think one is also, an admission that fact that professionals are busy. They're good at doing their job, but they're not the best at marketing, and they're not best at attracting clients. And so a big pain point, I think, for professionals is getting access to those clients, lead generation, bridging that gap like we touched on before. So I think providing, and that's somewhere where technology can play a huge part. It went from sort of word of mouth, that's where you got all your work from, to now we've got the internet. Now we can put articles up and bolster our reputation by giving people information that way. There are sort of clunky web forms and things that people can fill in to ask a lawyer to contact them. But of course, when you're at home at night, having a glass of wine on the couch and thinking about getting your will done, that's not when that's when most lawyers are not sitting at their desk ready to get your will started, and therefore, giving the ability for the client to get started with the process in their time, in their environment, and then allow the lawyer to then come in and complete the process with the client. That's, I think, the special sauce. That's the real mix that needs to get right.
If I can jump in on the pain points, both Max and Emma have talked about the data collection. I'm not going to reiterate that. That's a huge one. But the two things that I want to mention is the experience, the liability from our point of view as lawyers. Speaking as lawyers, the claims against lawyers in our area have gone like that, straight up, and real estate's gone down because of technology. Really, at the end of the day, and so. No one knows everything, and we can use technology and data to analyze situations and help us not make mistakes. That's one of the big, I sometimes joke about, estate law putting you to sleep during the day, but keeping you up at night. This is a real concern. And the other thing is the idea that, I'm sure most of us have that stack of files that you're looking over at your desk and saying, oh, I got to get to those wills. I got to get to those wills. I got to get to those wills. There are the efficiency of drafting is another pain point, right? If you can generate really quality stuff quickly, that's going to reduce that pile of wills to be drafted to the point where they're not there anymore, and you're turning things around. And the faster you turn things around, the faster, as Max said, the faster you get paid. Instead of waiting 3 weeks to get to that draft because it's low on the priority list. So it all actually ties in together.
In terms of pain points that we see every day, it's clearly delay, and unfortunately, that's an issue that is often outside the control of the estate lawyer, where you're subject to the courts and other issues that might delay the process. So we see that the delay is fueling the need for funds at the back end, when there's an estate administration happening, and rather than sort of calling the estate lawyer and saying, when am I going to get my distribution? When am I going to get my money? Bridgepoint gets applications. One of the first forays into this business for Bridgepoint was a young man who called and said, my grandmother died and my mother died and the houses are being sold, but it's going to take some time. But I have 4 kids and I want to buy a house, and this is how much money I'm going to be getting. And can you lend me $100,000? And we felt good about that. We were able to very efficiently find out what his recovery from the estates would be. The houses were being sold. It was a question of duration, not entitlement. So it was easy to sort of evaluate that. And we gave him, the money that he asked for, and he bought a home for his family and was very, very happy at the end of the day. When he recovered his inheritance and paid off his loan, he was very gracious and very thankful. And, we felt good about that. And it's evident to us since then, and given the volume of applications that come in from people in similar circumstances or trustees looking to deal with estates, that delay and the need for funds is really driving, the popularity, I would say, of the funding product, at least in the inheritance advance product. There are other pain points. Litigation is very expensive. So if you're in a dispute with respect to your case, or you're challenging a will, the cost of litigation is very expensive. And the ability to tap into a resource to assist with that would also be a benefit. And even lawyers running estates practices, it can get expensive, although the disbursements in an estates file are a lot lower than other areas of law. There are expenses from time to time. You're using your own resources sometimes to fund those expenses. And there are options with respect to funding in those scenarios as well. So, keep your funds and, use other funds to fund your clients' cases. So lots of different ways that funding solutions can be employed, but really it's delay and the need for cash that often drives those issues.
And Emma, you spoke a little bit about sort of what you're doing in your practice in terms of giving clients options and having a client ambassador. I think you also use a lot of collaborative tools. We have in our audience today, we've got lawyers, we've got accountants, we've got financial advisors. Can you speak a little bit about sort of what you do in your practice to connect all those people?
Yeah, we've been using this. We've been using this platform called ReadyWhen. It's a great platform that provides kind of a secure place online that we can exchange information. We can have the client interact with a variety of different professionals and organize their entire affairs online. So, I always talk about, you have a financial portfolio. You really need to have a legal portfolio that matches your financial portfolio, that protects your financial portfolio. And we should really be able to see all these things at once because they're all interplayed, interrelated. And so ReadyWhen is a platform that we've been using. We upload all of this stuff, all of our clients' documents there. It's a secure platform. And that way, they can invite other professionals as well. And it provides an area where the client can easily upload, right? So they can either send it to us, drop it off, or however is easiest for them. And then they can just directly put it up there, or we can, collaborate with their financial advisors, their accountants, whoever it is that might be related to them and their estate plan. They can invite them personally and bring them into that platform. And that way, everything is organized and we can help organize it for them, which is what really the goal is. We can upload the estate documents there. And if anything were to happen to the client, then, there's a button and whoever's named in the documents would then have access, and everything would be easily, laid out, and they would even, shoot out into different programs that will then facilitate the estate administration. So that's kind of a great tool that we've been using that, also interplays with the other great tools that we have available these days.
Excellent. Yeah. And what I'm hearing when we're talking about all these pain points is that really each of these, there's two sides to the pain point. There's the professional side, which we've spoken a lot about here. And then there's also the client side. And so, for every professional who is saying to themselves, I wish I had a tool that I could use to talk to the accountant and the financial advisor and organize everything in one place, you have that client saying, why can't everything be organized in one place? That would really be great. This, here I'm the middleman between my accountant and my lawyer, and I don't even understand any of this stuff. And then, Amanda, to your point, for every lawyer who is wondering why a probate process is taking so long or having to worry about, when they're going to be able to finish an estate administration, you have the clients or the beneficiaries on the other side, which you've given examples of today, saying, I'd like to use these funds, I'd like to have access to these. So you're solving, a lawyer problem and a client problem. Jordy, for every lawyer who's got a stack of 10 wills waiting to be drafted because they're not using a tool like Estate Planner, and they're going back to the old precedent and having to, or the last will they drafted and having to make all those changes, you have 10 clients that are waiting to get their wills done. And Max, to your point, for every lawyer who is sitting around saying, I wish I had more clients, there are literally thousands of clients out there who need wills drafted or need other legal services that are just aching for a way to connect to a lawyer that can help them. And so for anyone who's listening today, you have pain points in your practice, and the driver of those pain points is really what's happening on the client side. And so all the tools we've spoken about today, and there's dozens of others that you can employ in your practice to make things more efficient for you, less painful for you, but ultimately less painful for your clients. And so we've got a few minutes left, and before we wrap up, I'm going to ask each of you to take a couple minutes and just give everyone who's listening today your top 1 or 2 tips about what they can do to make their practice a little bit more innovative than it is today.
I'll go first. I would say invest time. I know we don't have it, it's at a premium, but it's worth it. Technology innovation requires an investment of, if you think about what you spend, what you're required to take in CLE every year, invest the same amount in technology, learning a new technology, it will pay dividends tenfold. But you got to set aside enough time, whether it's 10 or 12 hours, and it can change your practice, it can change your life.
Yeah, I'm gonna carry on that point and say not only invest time in that, but start to try to create processes that can bridge the gap between the traditional way of practicing and a more forward way of thinking of practicing, right? So if that means like we have developed a person in the firm that is the in-between between technology and the old traditional way, you can develop checklists, you can develop different ways of doing things that will just kind of push your practice into that new direction. But definitely on Jordy's point, you have to take the time to learn what programs are out there. And then if it's hard for you to just jump in, then create processes that can translate that, you into that in that new way of practicing.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I like to think, I think to round this out, I like to think of technology like a chainsaw. Really useful when used properly, catastrophic when not. And so, look, there is technology out there for everyone that complements your practice. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Look hard enough and have a look around to see what complements what you specifically do and your clients, and you'll find something there that that works for you. And so, yeah, embrace the technology, embrace the chainsaw that complements your practice, I think.
I'm going to remember that, Max. I'm going to remember that analogy. My sort of takeaway for this would be that, funding is not going to be right for every case. It just isn't. There may be other ways that your clients can manage the issues that they're presented with. But, there are probably scenarios that will arise that come up where, funding is a pain point, and there are alternatives, and it never hurts to investigate what those look like. There are choices in the market. Some of them are US choices, and we've had some people come to us after having gone that route, and it's not been great for them. So I would just encourage that if you do have a client or a beneficiary or somebody who is looking for funding, that they do their research and make sure that they're in good hands and that they're not going to be potentially taken advantage of or, not understand what deal they're making. So, transparency in litigation funding is key. And so I would encourage that you consider it if the facts of your case sort of lean towards it. but do your research or have your client do their research.
I'm going to jump in and say one more thing. I think that we all need to be a little bit more creative. I think that we need to move into the new world and start doing things online. I think we need to make videos. I think we need to get on social media. I think we need to educate people in the way that people want to be educated now. A lot of people read, but a lot of people just don't, right? And so we need to get out there and we need to do more things. And if people are accessing things online, then they're going to want to hear you online. They want to know you online. So I think that's what we need to do as lawyers. We need to get a little bit more personable, and tell a few more stories and just get out there a little bit more and just access more people as much as we can.
Just
Go ahead, Jordy.
Oh, sorry. On Emma's point, as lawyers, we got to stop just using words. It works great for us, but it doesn't work well for humans, other humans, and people think in pictures and graphics and visual. And so we got to move away from words and talking.
Yeah, I think those are both really excellent points. They're all great points. And if I could, leave anyone with a tip for today, it's that you're a professional, but you're also a consumer in a whole host of different areas. And you need to ask yourself questions of, am I providing a service in a way that I would want to be served? And I'm just going to give a simple example. Years ago, the only option if you wanted to get around the city was to call a taxi. So you'd call up the cab company, you'd wait for the taxi to show up, you would sit there, they would ask you which route to take so that you could sort of not come back after if you got stuck in traffic. You'd sit there and watch the meter tick up. You didn't know how much it was going to cost. You didn't know what time you were going to get there. Contrast that to where we are today. You pull out your phone, you choose your destination. It tells you right away who's going to pick you up, what car they're going to pick you up, and how long it's going to take you to get there, what route they're going to take, and how much it's going to cost. And then when you're done, you can rate the service and tell everyone else how good of a service that was. So which model are lawyers closer to today? Are they closer to the taxi model where, we're not sure how long it's going to take and we're not sure how much it's going to cost? Or are we closer to the Uber model? And I think we all know the answer to that. But we need to start moving closer to the way that people are expecting to have experiences today.
That was fantastic.
That's a good analogy.
Never thought of it that way, but we are the taxis.
Jordy's totally stealing that. He is totally stealing that analogy.
Well, maybe. Fantastic.
But you know what? We all know what happened to the taxi. If I can give everyone one more tip, take this piece of information in mind, go to your own website and read your bio and just ask yourself those questions as you're reading your own bio. Is this what people are going to care about when they're going to decide whether they're going to hire me for a legal service? Sorry, go ahead. Good tips? Okay, good.
Great tips. That's all. Great tips.
Well, I think we're just about out of time for the panel. I think some of us may be able to stick around for a Q&A. This is recorded, but this will be shown on Thursday. And I think for those of us that can make it, we'll be around for a Q&A after. So if you have questions, please leave them in the chat. And those of us who will be here will do our best to address them. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Really appreciate you being here.